the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Love How Deep. We are excited that you are choosing to listen and support us in that way, but also you're choosing to better your marriage. And that to us is the most exciting thing. So today is part 2 of Friends and Family Tips. So last week we talked about friends, and that means today we're going to talk about family. So just the same format from last time, just kind of question and answer, Q&A sort of thing, and giving you some tips and maybe sharing some stories or whatever. It's kind of how we're going to roll with this.
I like it. I'm ready.
Okay. All right, Brian. Here's your
ma'am.
first question. Does family ever interfere with your relationship with your spouse?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've worked with lots of couples over many, many years. And yes, this is can be a common occurrence.
I agree.
And we'll notice it where, again, maybe one family is a little bit more hands off for that spouse. And then the other spouse has a family that's a lot more hands on. I think we were working with a couple where one of the spouses wanted to continue seeing their family several nights a week, even after the marriage. And the other person was kind of like, huh? What? Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, you're married to me now.
Yeah. And
you should be home with me, spending time with me.
There was a lot of tension there. And I know you and I we try to do our best to kind of hear both people, and yeah, we will chime in and we want them to kind of work it out together. But I think you and I really were of the opinion of like, no, you got to back off of that. You are married, you have left your family, you have, leaving and cleaving in the Bible.
Yes.
You are leaving your family of origin and you are cleaving to your spouse. So,
right, starting your new family.
Yeah.
I think that takes a lot of good communication to be able to say, hey, can your family stop interfering in one way or another, whether it's just maybe somebody in the family is a little too nosy, and maybe your spouse is oversharing too much or whatever. But when you start sharing a lot of information, kind of personal information, I feel like that gives the extended family almost like permission to interfere, and give, problem-solving tips or whatever. And, where I think their heart is probably in the right place, but it's not, it's not necessarily a good situation, because now they're really in your business and can interfere. And you want to watch that,
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, in my first marriage, when we got married, her family, and we all lived in the same town, and her family was very much, they would just kind of pop over and not announce themselves.
Just walk in the door.
And for my ex-wife, that was fine. That was what she was used to. That's kind of how the family operated. But for me, I was not. And I remember getting very upset about that. And, probably said and did some things I wasn't too proud of, looking back on it. But, it was all about, because her family operated differently than mine. And so it wasn't like the word interfere in that question can be kind of harsh. I don't necessarily feel like the family was interfering, but it was just something that we had not really talked about.
Would you say it was a lack of boundaries?
Yeah, probably so.
And so,
yeah.
So y'all didn't set boundaries.
Right.
And so the family doesn't know that they're overstepping.
Right.
Because nothing's been said.
Yep.
And nothing's been said.
Yep. Communicate.
Always.
Right.
Yes.
All right. What else you got for me?
Yeah.
Am I still on the hot seat here?
Let's see. I'm looking at the questions on this list, and I feel like we've kind of covered them. So, do you have a question for me?
Yes, I can ask you a
question. And just to remind y'all, we've not really truly planned out what we're going to say. That we are just flying by the seat of our pants with some question cards in front of us. So again, these moments of where it sounds like we don't know what we're doing, that's what's happening. You get us in the real and raw.
I have a good one, and I don't necessarily think it's on this list.
Okay.
How would you handle it if your spouse was having a tough time with his or her own family? And what I'm getting at is like a lot of times there can feel like if you're the person on the outside, like, oh shoot, what do I do here? Do I try to make peace with everyone? Do I take my spouse's side? Like, what do I do? It's kind of, that's a tough one. I don't know if I just gave you a tough question, but
You did, but I mean, I think first and foremost, you want to support your spouse in that. If they're having a hard time dealing with something, or maybe they're mad at their own family, I think, your job is to support them, to listen to them, get them to explain like what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and why that is. Yeah. And find out what it is that they need from you. You don't necessarily need to go in problem solving. You need to go in listening, and then ask that question of like, what do you need me to do with, for you in this moment? And go from there. So communicate.
yeah, right. And I would say be careful with humor. I've had situations, for some reason I use humor as a defense mechanism for when I feel like things are tense or awkward, or getting a little bit shaky between people. Sometimes I will come in with a joke or say something funny, wanting to lighten the mood. And maybe that works sometimes, but other times it's sort of this diversion, and it can make it appear like I'm making light of this kind of situation. Like, oh, what, this is no big deal. So, and that's hard to know until you kind of blurt it out. You usually don't find out, but so I would just recommend and encourage you to be careful with humor. I've learned that from experience. So yeah. So what else you got for me? Or am I asking you? I think I'm asking you. I went way off the cuff. I went off the reservation, didn't I?
Yes.
On that one, because I asked you a question. I think that wasn't even really on our list, but,
all right, focus, get back on track.
Yes. I'll ask you this. Do you think your partner's family exerts a healthy level of influence on him or her? Why or why not? I don't know if you have anything personally or anything from couples that we've worked with. Whatever kind of hits you with that question exerts the influence that people exert. I think we've kind of talked a little bit about this as we've been talking, but
yes.
Have any words of wisdom, Heather?
Communicate.
Right.
Make sure your spouse knows how you're feeling there, that you feel like that their families are influencing way too much. And, I think learning how to set boundaries of how much you're going to share, or how much they're going to come over and, you're going to spend time with them. It takes a lot of communication with each other to understand where you're at. And it takes communication with your family as well.
Yep. Yeah. And, maybe you sit down and you talk about how many nights a week that it's acceptable to gather, or maybe I shouldn't even say nights per week. Maybe it's nights per month, or, when you need to make a large decision, how much will you allow them to exert. And I think for you and I, we definitely want our family's opinions. Like we value that.
We do.
We want to listen to that. But at the end of the day, we want to do our best to make our own decisions.
Yes.
And I think that comes with, again, going back to the leaving and cleaving. It's like, it's all about, you kind of, sometimes you stumble in life, but you stumble together and then you pick yourself up. But I'm not saying don't listen to your family. You want to be able to listen to them because they've got experience and wisdom too.
They do.
But it's their own wisdom, their own experience from their own situations in life, and maybe not necessarily exactly what you're going through. So you kind of have to,
I think that I think it's important to remember that your parents, no matter how old you are, your parents see you as 10 years old. Like Brian and I are 50 something. And, I think that our parents still see us as the 10-year-old children. And so, I think that that's normal for anyone. And they've spent their lives raising you. helping you become the person that you are and helping you discern right from wrong. You would go to them as a child with your problems and they would help you. And so that's, I think, just ingrained in them. So you want to keep that in mind, that sometimes what looks like just wrong interference is their way of helping you. And seeing it for what it is, but then you can, know that, like, all right, I know that they mean well. They're just helping, trying to be helpful. But it can, I guess it's up to you to set that boundary of like, I appreciate it, but I'm not asking for any help right now. I think that, we want to kind of figure out what we're doing on our own. It's okay to have those conversations with everyone involved. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and a few months ago, our pastor and his wife were up on stage talking about when kids go through, they go through their childhood and then they become adults and they move on. And I'll never forget what they said. They said, when your children are 18 and under, basically, you are a parent first and foremost, and you're not really their friend. But they said that once they cross over into adulthood, there's this progression and period of where the parenting diminishes and the friendship increases. And I think some people don't agree with that or don't feel that that's right. But I think you and I agree that, I think it's okay at this point. You and I are well into adulthood. Do we want to tell people how old we are? But
I said 50 something.
Yeah, we're 50 something.
I can't remember how old I am.
Yeah, and we want our parents to be more friends to us now.
Absolutely.
Because of the age that we're at. Yeah. That's more comfortable for me. And they are, yeah. So just remember that. And I know we're talking to you as we're giving you advice about how to deal with family and probably your parents. And so what I would say with that is maybe you just need to have a conversation with them to say, hey, we're in our 30s now or in our 40s or whatever it might be. And hey, we would just appreciate it if, we want to be more friends with you now as we get older. We do appreciate the advice and that kind of thing, but, friendship is important to us too at this point. So, yeah. All right. Am I asking you another one?
Oh, okay.
So let's see. I kind of feel like some of these questions, I feel like we're hitting on.
I think so.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have anything for me?
I do. How are your families different?
Oh, yeah, that's a real good question. Yes, our families are very different, yes. I would say. I mean, there's some similarities.
But I think every family is different. Just like you are not just like your spouse. Your spouse is not like you.
Yeah.
Your families are not the same.
Yeah, right. I mean, I will say the one similarity is our families are, the Christian faith is very important to our families. Mine was kind of a progression of that, I guess, over the years. Yours has always been relatively solid with it for all of your life. But the way in which we're different, I know is your question. I would say the big difference that stands out to me is that my family is a little bit more kind of not slow, but just I know, more laid back, maybe just want to kind of chill and talk and, that, and your family is more about activities and let's do something, let's share. And I think I kind of stumbled my way around that, but I think that's what I'm trying to say. That's one of the big differences. Games, like your family loves games. Mine, maybe not so much, a little bit here and there, but your family is much more about that. Yeah. I would say.
I think this is an important question to ponder because we don't think about that when we look at our families. We don't necessarily think about like how different they are, and the way that you were raised in your family makes you who you are. And when you meet your spouse, you understand that you're not exactly like each other, and it's because you come from very different families. So, if you look at your family and look at the other person's family through the lens of the differences, you can appreciate those differences and you can understand them, how they work and how they operate a little bit more, rather than, if I were to say, Brian, your family's so pushy, they're just in all of our business and they just throw around their opinions and they're over here all the time, like whatever it is. But why is it? Why are they that way? How do they operate as a family? And this isn't like something that developed in them overnight. This is who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
It can make you go, yeah, that's just kind of how they operate. It's how they are. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
yeah, it just gives you a new perspective. I think if you realize those differences, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just they're different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to say, with a lot of these things, there's no manual that somebody wrote and says, oh, this is how it has to be.
Oh man.
This, right. I mean, that would be nice, but it's just kind of figuring out I always hate to use the word navigate. It's the only word I can think to use when I talk about these things. But yeah, I just have to figure out how to navigate it together.
Yeah. We like to say, it's how important it is to understand how your spouse is, how God made him or her, their person, to understand each other's personalities, to understand how you were raised and how those differences, how you're able to come together, to have a strong, successful marriage. And so keep that in mind with your families and how, and understanding who they are and how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
So one other thing I wanted to mention, or I guess throw out there, is what do you most appreciate about each of your families? And I like that question because sometimes when they're just driving us crazy or something, not that our families drive us crazy, we love y'all, but sometimes like it's just so easy to see the negative things of like, and you're just cringing. You're just like, not again. Here we go again, whatever. And that's all your eyes can see are the negative things. So this question is super important because there's got to be something you appreciate about them.
Yeah.
And it's such a good conversation to have with each other.
Yeah. So,
so Brian, I love and appreciate how kind and loving your family is and how they do love to just talk and share from their heart and there's this loving nature about them that's just, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. And there's so much I love about your family. The one thing that just came to my mind is when we talk about in terms of the 5 love languages, I feel like your family, your mother, your father, and your brother, acts of service seems to be very big with all of them. I'm not saying that that's like their number one love language, but if I were to ever ask any of the 3 of them, hey, can I get your help on whatever it might be, fixing my car, or, I need to make a big meal for some of my friends. I mean, your mom would be all over that one.
Yeah.
Your dad or brother would be all over helping me with my car. So,
If the computer was causing a problem, Rob would,
right.
I'm going to build you a new one.
Right. They would, they would give you the shirt off of their back if you needed it. So, and that's something that I really appreciate about them. So,
so we want you to take a minute and tell each other what you appreciate about their family. Yeah. I think that's important.
Yeah. Definitely. When you first asked that question, my mind went to, okay, I'm going to say what I like about my family and you're going to say what you like about your family. But I like how you just did that. You said, here's what I like about your family, Brian. And then I was able to tell you what I like about your family. And so, I think just like you said, we would encourage you who are listening, do that. Just take a moment and tell your spouse, give them 1, 2, or 3 things that you really love about their family. I think that could be good.
That's good.
All right. Wow, this was an awesome little mini series. I love when we do these little mini series.
I know, they're kind of fun.
Yeah.
I feel like a takeaway with this one is just, it's always communication, but also setting healthy boundaries. If you feel like families are interfering and that sort of thing. So, good communication and setting some boundaries.
Yeah. And boundaries really are rules with, backed by love, it's through a foundation of love,
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing this because we love you. And, it's because of that. It's not that we want to, have distance between us. It's just, this is going to help us be better in relationships.
Absolutely.
So, So with that, we are going to wrap up, and we thank you so much for listening to this mini series. So again, the prior episode 46, and then this episode 47. 46 was about friends. This one was, of course, about family. And we want to remind you, we have a free resource. It's called Goal Setting 101. We think about doing better things with our family, whether we want to instill some boundaries, or maybe we want to have more quality time with them, you can take this worksheet and put that into this worksheet when you're thinking about goals. So these are all about your personal goals, your couple goals, and your family goals. And then I would encourage you do them as an individual and then share them with each other. I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add about that free resource for sharing with people.
I think it's a good
But
one.
yeah, I think I pretty much said all that
important.
I need to say.
You
So
did
yes.
good, Brian.
All right.
Thank you.
You can find that at the show notes for this episode at lovehowdeep.com/47. And we thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next time, and hopefully we'll have some more great content for you coming up. Take care until then.